Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. Deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has pleaded not guilty to drug trafficking and other charges at an appearance in a New York court on Monday, 2 days after being snatched by US forces in a raid on his residence in Caracas. He entered the courtroom dressed in an orange shirt and beige trousers. He had a smile on his face. Maduro said he was the president of Venezuela and alleged he was in the US kidnapped since 3rd of January. However, he was told by the judge to stick to simply stating his name. Maduro's wife, Cilia Flores, likewise pleaded not guilty. The judge ordered both to remain behind bars and set a new hearing date of 17th March. Gunshots were reportedly fired near Venezuela's presidential palace. This, according to witnesses cited in agencies. A source close to the government said unidentified drones flew over the Miraflores Palace in central Caracas and security forces opened fire in response. This hours after Maduro's deputy, Delcy Rodriguez, was sworn in as interim president following his removal. The source said the situation is now under control. Delcy Rodriguez, who served as vice president to Nicolas Maduro and has vowed to work with the Trump administration, was sworn in as Venezuela's interim president at the National Assembly building on Monday. The oath of office was administered by her brother, National Assembly President Jorge Rodiguez, during a special session of Parliament. Venezuelan lawmaker Jorge Rodiguez was sworn in as president of the National Assembly, pledging to uphold the country's constitution and laws during an installation session broadcast on state television. Rodiguez, who has led the National Assembly since 2021, was reappointed to the role on Monday. Rodiguez is the brother of now interim President Delcy Rodriguez. US President Donald Trump has reiterated his claims of wanting to take over Greenland and make it a part of the United States. This after Denmark's Prime Minister urged Trump to stop the threats to annex the semi-autonomous Danish territory. Speaking to the press, the US President said, "We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security." Meanwhile, addressing a press conference, Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen said that the notion of American control over the island is nothing but a fantasy. Furthermore, Nielsen called for renewed talks with the US and urged against panic after Trump's threats. Protests were witnessed outside US consulate in Sao Paulo. Protesters burnt flags in front of the US consulate against President Donald Trump's policies and the US military operations in Venezuela.
Ajuste duro contra os trabalhadores, isso enfraquece.
Similar scenes were witnessed at Downing Street in London. Hundreds of protesters voiced their anger over President Donald Trump's military intervention in Venezuela.
Thousands of troops.
Chinese President Xi Jinping called on his visiting South Korean counterpart to join Beijing in making the right strategic choices in a world that is, what she said, becoming more complex and turbulent. At the 90-minute summit, Li and Xi agreed on the importance of peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and the resumption of dialogue with North Korea, South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported. Lee Jae-myung is the first South Korean leader to visit the Chinese capital in 6 years. His meeting with Xi came a day after the nuclear-armed North fired 2 ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. Activists say at least 25 people have been killed in Iran's ongoing economic protests. The figure came from the US-based human rights activist news agency, which said more than 1,200 people have been detained in the protests, which have been ongoing for more than a week. It said 29 protesters, 4 children and 2 members of Iran's security forces have been killed. Demonstrations have reached over 250 locations in 27 of Iran's 31 provinces. The country's efforts to quell a wave of anti-government protests have been complicated by Trump's threat to intervene on their side. A day before US Special Forces seized Maduro and his wife on January 3rd, the US president warned in a social media post that if Iran's leadership killed protesters who have taken to the streets since December 28th, the US will come to their rescue. Iran's judiciary has warned that Tehran will offer no leniency to rioters, even though the public has a right to demonstrate. Following more than a week of sometimes deadly protests, according to Mizan news agency, the head of the country's judiciary, Ghulam Hussein Mohseni Ejei, said he has instructed the Attorney General and prosecutors across the country to act against the rioters and those who support them and show no leniency or indulgence. He went on to add that Iran listens to the protesters and their criticism and distinguishes between them and rioters. The Israeli military carried out strikes on southern and eastern Lebanon, targeting what it described as Hezbollah and Hamas positions in 4 villages. The attacks were carried out shortly after evacuation warnings were issued to the residents in the affected areas. Video footage showed thick smoke billowing into the night sky after an Israeli airstrike hit the southern Lebanese town of Anan. Lebanon's state media also reported that a strike on Al-Manara in eastern Lebanon completely destroyed a house and caused extensive damage to nearby homes, vehicles and commercial buildings. The report said the targeted house belonged to a Hamas leader in Lebanon who was killed by Israel in 2024. Israel and Lebanon reached a US-mediated ceasefire in 2024, ending more than a year of clashes between Israel and Hezbollah that culminated in Israeli attacks, significantly weakening the Iran-backed group. The Trump administration overhauled the federal US pediatric vaccine schedule, upending years of scientifically backed recommendations that reduced disease with routine shots. The dramatic shift announced by the US Health Department, led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., means the US will no longer recommend that every child receive immunizations against 6 diseases, including rotavirus and influenza. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will pay an official visit to India from January 12th to 13th at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This will be Chancellor Friedrich Merz's first official visit to India. During the visit, he will travel to Ahmedabad and Bengaluru. Prime Minister Modi will receive Merz on January 12th in Ahmedabad. The two leaders will review progress across various areas of the India-Germany strategic partnership. Discussions will focus on further strengthening cooperation in trade and investment, technology, as well as education. A man walked into a police station in Delhi's Lakshmi Nagar area on Monday and allegedly confessed to killing 3 members of his family. According to the police, he told officers that the victims were his mother, sister, and younger brother, and claimed the family had been under severe financial strain. Police further said that the man had previously worked as a driver but had been unemployed for the past 6 months. He also told investigators that he had taken out a life insurance policy worth about 1.5 crore rupees and attempted suicide multiple times in the last few months. French President Emmanuel Macron, during the traditional King's Cake ceremony, said the government would work to finalize a budget in the coming weeks. Macron pledged to fight to ensure that cafes and bistros in France are fully recognized by UNESCO. Thousands lined the streets of Cape Town for the colourful annual Minstrels Parade, a cornerstone of South African culture rooted in the city's history of slavery. Troops of thousands of minstrels marched and danced in vibrant costumes, many twirling umbrellas and tossing walking sticks as they were accompanied by brass bands. Delhi woke up to a thick layer of smog on Tuesday, with several parts of the national capital recording very poor air quality. The Central Pollution Control Board reported that Chandni Chowk topped the list with an AQI of 348, followed by Anand Vihar at 343 and Mundka at 341. In response to the dense smog and forecast from the India Meteorological Department, Delhi Airport issued a passenger advisory warning that some flights may face delays or disruptions and urged travellers to check with their airlines for the latest updates. People took to the snowy slopes of Montmartre on Monday, sledging and skiing as a rare blanket of snow transformed the French capital's streets and parks. Heavy snowfall disrupted air, road and rail travel in France. Buses are completely halted in Paris and some surrounding towns due to the severe weather conditions. Snowfall disrupted traffic in the Netherlands on Monday as snowfall has blanketed roads, causing delays and accidents. Authorities advised people to stay at home whenever possible as hundreds of flights were cancelled and trains around Amsterdam came to a standstill. The Amsterdam airport, one of Europe's busiest hubs, cancelled almost 500 flights on Monday morning and was closed to incoming traffic until 1200 GMT due to the snow. News agency ANP reported snowfall is expected to continue in the Netherlands throughout the week. Bosnia is struggling with heavy winter snow after over 50 centimeters worth of snow fell in just 24 hours, closing roads and causing havoc in some parts of the country. In the capital, Sarajevo, a woman died on Monday after a tree collapsed on her due to the weight of accumulated snow. Several flights from Sarajevo airport were cancelled on Sunday and Monday. More snow is predicted this week and temperatures are expected to plummet to minus 10 degrees Celsius. Wall Street ended sharply higher, led by a surge in financial and energy stocks, pushing the Dow Jones to an all-time high. Markets rallied after expectations that American oil companies could gain access to Venezuela's vast crude reserves. Energy stocks jumped 2.7%, their highest level since March 2025, with ExxonMobil and Chevron surging. Defense stocks also hit record highs on expectations of higher military spending. Financials rose over 2%, with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan touching fresh peaks ahead of earnings season. US manufacturing ended 2025 on a weak note, sliding to a 14-month low. The manufacturing PMI fell to 47.9 in December, marking the 10th straight month of contraction. While Trump says tariffs are boosting revenues and economic security, manufacturers say higher costs and weaker demand are hurting margins and orders. Nearly 85% of manufacturing GDP was in contraction, with only electronics and electrical equipment showing growth. Production, inventories and employment all weakened, with factory jobs declining for an 11th consecutive month. Many firms warned that early 2026 could remain bleak, despite hopes that tax cuts and selective tariff exemptions may eventually provide relief. Tesla is losing ground in Britain's electric car market. UK registrations for the Elon Musk-led automaker plunged more than 29% year-on-year in December. For 2025, Tesla's UK sales are down 8.9%, reflecting intensifying competition, an aging model lineup, and growing backlash to Musk's political stance in Europe. The pressure is visible across the continent. Tesla registrations fell 27% in the Netherlands in December, contributing to a 44% drop for 2025. Kodiak AI has announced a strategic partnership with German engineering giant Bosch to scale up the manufacturing of autonomous trucking hardware and sensors as the company moves beyond pilot projects towards full-scale commercial deployment. The announcement was made at CES in Las Vegas, where both companies said the collaboration would focus on building a production-ready autonomous driving platform for long-haul trucks. Under the partnership, Bosch will supply Kodiak with a range of automotive-grade components, including sensors, compute systems, and vehicle actuation technologies such as steering and braking systems. A Paris court has found 10 people guilty of cyberbullying France's First Lady Brigitte Macron for spreading false and abusive online claims about her gender and sexuality, including allegations that she was born male. One defendant received a 6-month prison sentence, while 8 others were given suspended sentences ranging from 4 to 8 months. All 10 were ordered to attend cyberbullying awareness training, with several also facing temporary bans from social media platforms. The court described the comments as particularly degrading, insulting, and malicious, noting that repeated posts had a cumulative and harmful effect. Indonesian prosecutors have filed corruption charges against former Education Minister and Gojek co-founder Nadiem Makarim over alleged irregularities in a pandemic-era laptop procurement that caused state losses of about $125.6 million. Prosecutors told a court that Makarim enriched himself by around $48.3 million through the purchase of Chromebook laptops and Chrome OS for schools between 2020 and 2022. They allege he designed tender specifications that only fit Google's Chrome system, effectively making Google the sole controller of Indonesia's education ecosystem. In sport, Egypt have booked their place in the quarterfinals of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations after edging a tense last 16 encounter against Benin. The 7-time champions dominated from the outset but were unable to find a breakthrough in the first half. Both sides scored in the second before more drama unfolded in extra time. Egypt struck twice, including a goal from Mohamed Salah, to seal the win. The defeat ends Benin's hopes of matching their 2019 run to the quarterfinals, while Egypt now await a tie against either defending champions Ivory Coast or Burkina Faso.